Well, hello. Welcome back to another episode of I'm Not Triggered, the podcast. I'm your host, Adrian Purchase, and I'm so glad you're here today. So, by the end of this episode, you'll be a pro at spotting and unraveling those sticky situations that seem to just keep repeating in your life. You know, the ones where you find yourself thinking, well, how did I end up here again? Or it's like replaying the same tape over and over again. But today we're going to take a look at what's going on behind the scenes to understand why these patterns keep repeating. But first, I got to tell you, I'm not a professional. I'm a combat veteran, and I've done a lot of different therapy types, and I found dialectical behavior therapy to be incredibly useful and helpful for me. I suffer from addiction, eating disorders, PTSD, BPD, anxiety, all of the things. And I can tell you hands down that DBT therapy, the tools that I've been taught, the ones that I'm hopeful to teach you, have really changed my life. They've really made my life so much better. And I want to do the same for you. Maybe there's somebody that you love and care about that's struggling with emotion dysregulation. I hope that these tools can help. Why am I so excited to talk about this today? Well, because I kind of used to be an asshole. And now I don't think I am anymore, which is pretty nice, right? But in order to get to that place, I had to start to understand why I was reacting the way that I was to different situations. And that took a lot of effort to understand, but it was work that was wholly worth doing. Now, today, the specific tool is called behavior chain analysis, but that sounds really boring and dull and not like the thing that I'm talking about. So that's the technical term. But what I'm calling it is habit change. We're going to be able to go through and find out what our habits are, why we habitually react in a certain way, and then how we can change. So, behavior chain analysis or habit change, it's kind of like baking a cake, right? So, behavior chain analysis or habit change, let's use an analogy. Let's imagine we're baking a cake. Now, let's say that the cake comes out burnt. Maybe it tastes like cardboard. Maybe it didn't rise. It didn't work out. Well, you wouldn't just throw in the towel and say, I'm never going to bake a cake again, right? Would you? I don't know. I hope not. If you do that, you definitely need this video. What you would do is, oh, I need to figure out why the cake didn't rise, why it tastes so terrible, why it didn't work out. So you'd retrace your steps, and then the next cake that you bake would probably come out better. And that's how you know that maybe you did something more effectively. That's the same thing here. You have to wait until you react to something and then go back. You have to be willing to go back without judgment to your behavior in order to change it. And that's what we're going to do. But first, remember to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss anything. There's videos every Sunday. So let's be honest, right? Most of us have behaviors that we want to change, but are having trouble doing so. Me included, right? Maybe you keep stress eating. Maybe you keep going out for that cigarette when you quit yesterday, right? Maybe you find yourself being a little cranky with your loved ones after a long day at work. Maybe you're just stuck in a crappy pattern that you don't like and you're not quite sure how to change, but you want to. Perfect. If you feel that way, you're in the right spot. I mean, you're not in the right spot. We'll get you to the right spot, but you know what I mean. We've all been there, right? Like maybe you've had a long, bad day at work. You come home and somehow like a pint of ice cream is gone before you even realize it. And then later you're thinking, wait, why did I do that? Or maybe you lost your temper and you had a tantrum over something that's kind of arbitrary and small. Like maybe someone not emptying the dishwasher, picking up their socks. And it's like, okay, why did them not picking up their socks send me into the stratosphere of anger? Right? That seems a little ridiculous looking back on it. There is recent one time, it was one. If you have kids, if you live with any people, or I guess pets too. I remember walking the bathroom and there was just a paper roll, like a toilet paper roll, just the cardboard thing on the floor with like the wrapper. Like we have a trash can in the bathroom, right? We have two teenage boys who know how to throw things away. And that day I had a long, hard day, I guess, emotionally, and I lost my shit over a toilet paper roll. Now, when I traced back why I got so mad, at first I was mad. I thought I was mad because I felt so disrespected that I feel like I work hard to keep our house clean and organized. And I feel like I can never keep up. I'm sure a lot of you feel the same way. And to walk in and just see, like, you couldn't even do the 30 seconds of extra work to throw the fucking toilet paper roll away. Like, it really made me so angry. And so in therapy, we were talking about this in couples therapy. And it came out that, actually all of the anger I felt, yes, I did feel disrespected. It was annoying. That's true. But it went much deeper than that because for me, what that triggered internally without me even knowing it until later was when I was a child, if I left trash on the floor, it was my ass. Like, I get chills thinking about what would have happened, and of course I had a response the way I did as a 41-year-old adult with my kids leaving their trash on the floor. Of something that happened 30 years ago is still so deeply embedded in me. So that kind of gives you an example of how this behavior chain analysis, how we can change our habits. It gives you an example of why this is important and how to go back and analyze our reactions to things and how to do things differently. Now, if I see socks and trash on the floor, I pick it up or I don't. It depends. And I just know that that's part of living with people, right? For the most part, they're everyone I live with is pretty good about cleaning up after themselves, right? And I know there's a level of acceptance with my OCD that my house is just messy because it's lived in. We live here, we play games here, we horse around, we wrestle, we sing, we dance, we create, we make messes, we cook, we have fun, right? Like this is our home. And I don't know why we think homes are supposed to be so clean and sterile. It's interesting to me. That's a side thought. Anyway, so with behavior chain analysis, when we want to change habits, we have to walk through what we want to do differently. We have to walk through what happened, our part in it, and what we want to do differently. So instead of like just hitting autopilot when something dysregulating happens, I really, really hate, I really don't, I'm not an extrovert. it, I'm not a recluse, but not by choice. I do have a slight fear that I would be a recluse if I didn't have a family. Because honestly, even with all the therapy and the healing and the work that I've done, I still find being out in the world really, really hard. It's really taxing for me. I don't live in a big city. We live in a small city, in a suburb. There's not like traffic or anything, but to me, there's traffic and I get a lot of anxiety driving downtown, but that's real for me. And I've just had to accept that going out in public places and feeling safe doing it, we go to a lot of course, friendly places that seem safe on the outset, right? Or I trust my feelings. If I walk into a bar and it does not feel like a place that wants me there, I won't stay. I don't go places I'm not wanted. But that can be problematic because I've gotten into a habit of not going places because now I just think I'm not wanted. I do live in a part of the country in America where in the Midwest it's quite difficult to be out and gay and, live your life in a way that feels really safe. And I don't know what that feels like. So I can't say I necessarily want to change my habit here of not going out. I actually feel pretty good about it. And I also know a part of me does want to have a higher threshold for being out in public, mostly because my wife, she loves being with people. She loves people so much. She was at work the other day all by herself for like 8 hours and she thought she was going to lose her mind. That sounds like a dream to me. I'm at home alone for like 8 and 10 hours on some days and it's fucking wonderful. So we are extreme opposites, right? And so she has to give a little and I have to give a little. She has to be okay with staying home a lot or she's going to have to go out with someone else. And I have to be okay with feeling uncomfortable going out and still allowing myself to have a good time. But that took a lot of analysis to figure out how to get to this point. And that's what we're talking about, how to get to that point that you want to be at, but you can't quite seem to get there. And so the behavior chain analysis, the way to change our habits, right, is we walk through what triggered us, why we reacted the way that we did, when we reacted. and what happened afterward. And here's the beauty of it. Once you understand what set you off, you can actually work on responding to that same situation differently. It may not feel different internally. You may still have the same feelings, but they won't be as big, they won't last as long, and you won't be an asshole. That's pretty nice. So, as a personal example, so for me, I realized that I developed a maladaptive coping pattern when I was separated from my wife for a year. What's the behavior? Eating right before bed. I have an eating disorder anyway. And now you throw on all of this GI stuff that I've been dealing with, and it gets really bad. I'm going to the doctor next week, thankfully. But the point is, now I'm still having a hard time changing this habit though. Like, to be fully transparent and honest, this is something that I'm actively working on with my DBT therapist that I have now. Eating right before bed. So it started because I was sad and lonely, and overly tired, I'm sure. And when I'm tired, I think I'm hungry, which is awful. And so I would start eating before bed because I couldn't sleep. And so then I'd be tired, which made me think I'm hungry, right? And then I lay down for 8 hours and my body can't process the food because it can't actually go through my stomach the way it's supposed to. And just over time, it ended up causing a lot of issues. And if I could go back and maybe pick a different method of handling my insomnia that wouldn't cause me such pain, I would do it. Now, I don't know that I did all of that single-handedly myself, but I know it didn't help anything. I'm not blaming myself solely. And I'm also certain that had I been capable of changing my habits, I would probably feel better. And it's taken a lot of honest, non-judgmental work and acceptance. But the behavior chain analysis helped me recognize that I was avoiding the stress of not sleeping in my own bed, not being in my home environment, not having my old routine schedule. So, what do I do differently, right? Most nights I do better. Instead of eating, sometimes I'll play a game on my iPad or my Switch for a while. I really like to watch archaeology documentaries before I fall asleep because I find them fascinating. I stretch my body. I check in with my body. Sometimes I write something different than eating, understanding that it's just a feeling that I need to eat. I don't actually need to eat. I remind myself I ate. I've had plenty of energy in my body. We're not going to go hungry. It's okay to just go to sleep. The awareness though has made all the difference, that and the acceptance of it. So here's how you can actually use behavior chain analysis. Okay. So I'm going to walk you through the steps, and you can think of a situation in your own life as we go along. You can pause and come back if you have to, or you can just listen along. So the first step is to identify our problem behavior. Well, that's not really a step we all need to take. We usually know what we want to stop doing or what we want to start doing, right? Oh, I need to go to the gym. Yeah, probably, but what are we going to do about it, right? So we identify the behavior we want to analyze, and then we can describe the situation. So with step 2, we're going to look at the situation where this behavior happened. What was happening for you then? Where were you physically, literally? Who was with you? And most importantly, how were you feeling? Were you tired? Were you anxious? Were you happy? Were you sad? Were you overwhelmed? And then we can identify what might make this difficult. What makes changing this behavior so hard, which are called vulnerability factors. Looking for things that make us more likely to react. Maybe you're running on 3 hours of sleep. Maybe you were starving or already stressed about something else. These are like little clues in this analysis that tell us when we're likely to just snap if we're paying attention. So step 4 would be the chain of events of the situation. So we map out the chains, right? We start with the trigger. What set everything in motion? Maybe it was getting a passive aggressive text from your boss. Maybe you got some bad news. And then we can literally check in physically with how we're feeling. Did our heart race? Did our stomach churn? Right? Were we sweating? And what did we do with our response? So this is where we could connect the dots of what was going on in the background and with how we responded or reacted. Then there's the consequences of your behavior and accept them. That's the power that holds the possibility for real change. So what were the consequences, right? Like what happened after that behavior? Now, and did your reaction help? Did it make it worse? Then we can problem solve. This is where we can problem solve and figure out alternative solutions. So the most important part here, right, is brainstorming alternatives. How can we react differently to the same thing? People are going to cut you off in traffic all the time, forever. Like that's just how it is, right? So if you know that going into a situation, you're driving and you're like, yeah, I'm going to get cut off. Just, oh, there it is. Yep, it happened. Look at that. Great. It's out of the way. You just ask yourself, what could I do differently? What could I do more effectively next time? Behavior chain analysis gives us an opportunity to choose something different, to instill a new habit, something more beneficial, something more effective for us. So to wrap this up and recap what we've covered. So behavior chain analysis will help you break down these moments when you reacted in ways that you didn't want to, ways that you didn't like. By identifying the situation, our own vulnerability factors, the chain of events, and the consequences, we can start to see the whole pattern. And the best part, you can use this information now to begin the process of changing your habits. So I encourage you to try this. I'm going to leave some links below and let me know in the comments what you think. Of course, if you like what I'm doing here, don't forget to hit subscribe, like, and hit that bell so you don't miss any videos. There's new videos every Sunday. And you can always check out my Substack where I write about mental health and more personal essays. That's what I have for you today. I hope that you found it helpful, and I'd love to hear from you in the comments about your own habits and the challenges maybe you've had with them and successes that you've had. You can always shoot me an email. But until next time, take care of yourself.